Hey everybody! In today's video, I have a fun little rainbow masking, ink blending technique to go with these amazing rainbow themed products that are out today. I think you'll really enjoy this. I'm using my sticky mat and some 3M Post-it tape, and I'm using the grid on my sticky mat to really precisely line up the masked areas that I'll be using. So I'm taking 4 squares on my mat for each stripe, and then I'm going to overlap each one of those stripes by one of these squares. So my stripes are 1/2 inch because this is the 1/8 inch version of the mat, and then they will overlap to create a rainbow. I'm using my holy trinity of colors. I will list the inks down below, and I'm just using a blending brush to create my stripes. And my Glassboard mat is very important in this process, as you will see when I move to the darker colors. But I'm starting with yellow. And of course, you don't have to go in any kind of order, but the way that I do this ends up creating a rainbow, which was the point of this. So now I will go up 3 squares this time, so 3/8 of an inch, because I'm going to steal 1/8 of an inch from that yellow stripe. Now, if you want to cut your cardstock down to be exactly the size of the finished project at the beginning, feel free. I did not. I just started with one of my pre-cut card fronts that I get. I also have a link to those below. I don't enjoy spending time in my paper cutter, so I just order these already cut. And then at the end, I go trim off 1/8 of an inch. But on my card, I wanted a white border on the top and the bottom, and you might not want that. So my advice to you is just go ahead and create this technique. Create your little rainbow, and then trim your cardstock down afterwards, because then you can have exactly what you want. You can have a border, you can have no border, whatever. Okay, so with the darker blue ink that I have on my blending brush, I do like to scribble on my glass mat to get a little bit of the ink off first before beginning. You can also pick ink up off your glass board, but I like to get a little bit off because this color is so much more intense than the yellow. I don't want to have like a big dark section right at the beginning when I'm just starting to blend. So you'll see me going into that little ink pile that I have and picking up a little bit of ink to blend this with. Now this mat is also magnetic. You can see the magnet holding the tape down that's holding my sticky mat down. And I love these magnets because they're sort of encased in little chess piece style coverings, and so that keeps them from smashing together and breaking. And they're great for holding down objects like this, or holding down your card while it's drying and it has glue on it. I do have a coupon code for your Glassboard. You can get 20% off if this is something that interests you, if you don't already have a mat that you love. I love this one, and I've tried virtually every mat. And I haven't broken it yet, which is kind of amazing for me. You know, somebody lives with cats, anything can happen. So again, I'm stealing 1 inch of the blue and then putting the tape, positioning the tape 3/8 of an inch above that, so that I get a little overlap. And now I'm switching to the pink, and same thing, I'm going to get a little bit of this very intense ink off on my Glassboard mat before applying it to the cardstock. And I'm also trying to be sort of conscious to have a light touch with this, because again, this is a much darker color than the yellow, and I'm trying to make this sort of an even rainbow. But as I go over the blue with the pink, then you will see where it turns into purple, and you can see how we are sort of building this rainbow. And to me, it has like this fun 70s sort of look to it that I just love, because of course that's around the time of my childhood, and those themes always make me happy. Now, I did use the same piece of tape over and over again for a while. You will, depending on how humid your climate is or how quickly you're working, you will notice that there can be some ink transfer off of the tape and onto your project. So if you don't like that, then just get fresh tape a little more often than I did. I am using my ink stand here. I love this thing. It keeps my ink in place while I'm blending. Now, I started with the yellow, and then I went to blue, and then went to pink. So now I'm going to go back to yellow. And what's amazing is you can create a full spectrum rainbow just with these 3 colors with the overlap, which is sort of what I was really happy with when I created this card. I thought that was a fun rainbow technique that maybe hasn't necessarily been seen with just 3 colors. I think when we make rainbows, we all sort of reach for our rainbow colors, but you really don't need them when you have the primaries. So as I was saying, I grabbed some fresh tape because I was noticing a little bit of ink transfer. So feel free to do that. I then take the inky tape that I used and I stick that on the little panel that's next to my die cutting machine. And I use that very colorful tape to hold my dies in place while I die cut. So you don't have to throw it away. You can still get some more use out of it. But while that ink is wet, you might see that transfer and you might want to grab a couple of different pieces of tape. So here I'm getting the ink off again and then switching to blue. Now, one of the things that I had to sort of concentrate on when I was doing this is the order that I was doing these in. So it does not have to be a rainbow. So this is somewhat in rainbow order. So if you wanted to alternate, so if you want to do blue, yellow, pink, and then blue, instead of starting over at yellow, you can certainly do that. It'll be just as adorable. But I was sort of trying to stay in this order with the one that I was doing. So what I need to go order over there is more magnets. So when I ordered my board, I got it with 3 magnets. And I find that I could use a lot more than that. You can really never have too many magnets, if I'm just being honest. It's just not a thing. Okay, now for me, making sure that I put the lid to the correct ink pad back on the ink pad is important, because if you have like a squirrely moment and you're not noticing which ink pad you're picking up ink off of, that can be kind of a disaster. So make sure that you recap your ink if your brain works like mine does, and you're not necessarily looking over there and paying attention to making sure that you're doing it correctly the first time. I love how when this creates that purple, you can't really tell. When I was first doing this technique, I thought, well, that just looks like blue, until you pull it up and you realize it really looks like purple, because you can see the other original blue right below that. I think that's so fun. So we'll do the last couple of these here. I'm just going to go ahead and keep the tape. I don't know how you could do this without some sort of a grid, whether you had grid paper. For me, I like the cardstock being held in place with the sticky mat, but I can't see doing it without a grid. If I did it without a grid, it would be all wonky and Winchester Mystery House looking by the time I was done. It would not be nice, neat little stripes. So just know yourself. That's the important thing. Know your crafting style and know if that's going to work for you. So dabbing a little bit of ink off. And because I'm just sort of in that habit, I'm doing it with the yellow, even though the yellow isn't all that intense. You can also flip the tape around. So just use the top unused portion of the tape the next time instead of the part that already has ink on it. If you live in a humid place like I do and no ink literally ever dries. The reveal is always so satisfying. You know how it is whenever you're doing ink blending and masking, especially masking. It's so much fun to pull that tape off. I just love it. And wait until you see the little die cut that I'm going to put on top of this. Now, the way that I have the sticky mat held down to my glass board is I just put 2 pieces of tape with the sticky side up underneath my mat. And then I taped those down to my glass board with blue painter's tape. This is a trick that you'll actually see me do fairly often when I want my cardstock not to move just on my regular work surface. The cardstock isn't going to move on my sticky mat. That's not going to happen, but the back of the sticky mat is slick, and so it will move around a little bit on the work surface, but not if you have it taped down. And then again, I just reuse that tape. I just go stick it. I have this little like whiteboard thing by my die cutting machine that holds all of my little scraps of tape because you can really just use this endlessly. This tape is awesome. Hopefully I will remember to put a link to this. It is a delicate surface painter's tape. And so it's a really strong tape, but it will release those delicate surfaces. Again, if you're working with a delicate paper, like maybe a pattern paper or an old book page or something like that, you might need to like stick the tape onto your jeans or something to remove some of the tack. But for cardstock and things like that, I've just had great luck with this tape and with the Post-it tape that I'm using. So now we are finally on our last stripe. Same thing. The total stripe is going to be 1/2 inch with 1 stolen 1/8 of an inch. So now I have this little daisy. You know I love this plate. I've used it in like the last 4 videos. So I'm just going to cut into this rainbow panel so that I get just a little bit of texture in addition to the rainbow. And then I'm going to finish this card 2 different ways after it's done. And you will see that I actually left my rainbow, my true rainbow product, white and let the background do all the rainbowing for me. So that's kind of fun. So now through the magic of television, I have one that is already die cut. I've already run it through with that cover plate. So I will show you how I finish this fun card. Now I'm going to put this on a white card base. I buy these already pre-cut and scored because I would rather stamp than cut and score cardstock. So I will just take one of these. This is an A2 top fold. That's my favorite orientation, but I do also have in the bundles that are listed with pre-cut and scored cardstock. I do have the other orientation. I have slimline, I have mini slimline, and I have the card front panels that I like to use. So step 1 is going to be to glue the inky and textured die cut panel onto the card base before I can do my finishing embellishments. I will have a triple layer word die that I love. I've used this a lot. This will not be the first time you've seen this on my channel. And I will also add a couple little embellishments. Now here's my favorite part of the Glassboard is weighting down my cards. Because this has a little bit of texture, I like to just, after I put the glue on, I like to just put the magnets on it and let it sit for a bit just until that glue starts to dry, which happens really quickly. Now we can take that off and get to work. And even though it takes a little bit of time to do the rainbow stripes, finishing this card is really super easy. So the top layer of this hello die is black. I thought that that would be a nice bold contrast with my rainbow for this first card. The second card is just gluing die cuts on, so I won't make you sit through that again. But what I love about these triple layer dies is that the base layer is actually pierced. It has a piercing detail on it. So for me, that's what ties in the daisy plate in the background with my sentiment. And I love having those two things sort of just coordinate on my card front. Now, because I happened to actually die cut this straight across my card, I'm able to use some embellishments in a little row as well. And you will see that here in a second after I place my hello down. But you can see how much difference the black cardstock makes there. I think that just looks great. So fun. And look at all that texture in the background. That looks really great. So I'll get that set a little bit and then we will pop some little pearls onto this card. Now initially I was just going to do the whole rule of threes, adding 3 embellishments. Then I noticed that the flowers were in a straight line and it was much easier for me to do this and make it look like I was doing this on purpose, that I set out with intention to do this, but I did not. So I will just pop all the same size little embellishments onto these flowers across the front of the card, and that's really all you need to do. to have a fun little stripey rainbow with just 3 colors, 1 word die, no stamping, and just these little embellishments. So fun. Let me show you what that looks like up close. You can see all those beautiful little flowers and how perfect the little embellishments look on there. They're sized right, all of that. So I hope you enjoy this rainbow release. I have more cards for you. These super fun rainbow dies that are on the second card with the exact same technique from the first panel that I created in this video. And head over to my blog for more information and more inspiration. And thanks so much for watching.